Hello and welcome back to Time to Change. And today I got my buddy on here. I love Suman Kapur. Let's go. Let's give it up in the house, people.
Yes.
Suman is a coach, a consultant, a speaker. She consults with Well-Balanced Solutions. She is also the co-host of Meeting in the Middle. When I can make that, it is one of my favorite groups to be part of. If you don't know about this group, it is a DEIA&B group, but we dive into all kinds of things. So if you're in human resources, you're in talent, you are a leader that wants to know more about this, dive in because it's a great group. And that is 12 p.m. Eastern time every Friday.
Yes.
Every Friday. So hey guys, come on in, join us. We would love to have you. Love to have you. Holly Mangrum is the other co-host. So thank you. And today, perfect conversation. First gen conversations need to happen more and talk about their fears and talk about where they're coming from so that we can do a better job as leaders of learning, of listening, and of giving the correct tools to people and the opportunities to people so they can bloom where they are. So Suman, let's just dive right on in. Let's dive on in. So tell us about your experience, and then I'm going to play off of some of the things that you're talking about, and I'm definitely going to get to the phone book story. I am not. Don't even think that's not getting in there. That's totally getting in there. So
good. I'm so glad. So I'm born here in the U.S. My parents came in the 60s for education and work. I grew up in Queens, New York, and I literally straddled two cultures, right? Born in the U.S., but my parents, their heart, their soul was still in India. So coming home was curry smelling, amazing Indian food. I say that now, I didn't then. Right? I say it now, I didn't then, which is part of my first gen story. You could smell the incense from the prayers that my mom did. So all these exotic, strong odors, smells, not odors, but smells in the house permeated everything. That was home. Mm-hmm. My parents both spoke English, but when my grandparents came, it was Punjabi or Hindi. Mm-hmm. I understood it. I could probably speak it back then, but I always responded in English. And all of that stemmed from wanting to assimilate, wanting to be a part of the school culture, fit in with my friends, right? Even though I grew up in Queens, New York, very diverse area, our town, very strong Catholic background. We had Puerto Ricans in my neighborhood. So those were the two big cultures. And I didn't fit in. I'll tell you a really quick story. I was on the elevator with my sister going up to our apartment, and a very sweet abuelita gets on and starts speaking Spanish. I don't know Spanish. And I told her, I don't know Spanish. In very broken English, she yells at me, scolding my parents for not teaching me my culture and my language. So I had this appearance of looking Hispanic. I'm not. And it was just this very convoluted space of growing up and just wanting to belong somewhere, right? And that's why these conversations are so important, because my experiences are part of my intersectionality. And if I want to feel safe and comfortable in a workspace, people need to know why I might be a perfectionist. Where does that stem from? Why I might be an introvert. Where does that stem from, right? Where do all of my characteristics and all the things that make up me, where do they come from? And they come from, for my story at least, for being a first gen in the US.
Let's dive in even deeper than that. How do organizations begin to recognize that diversity and, as you said, that intersectionality? How do we tap into that as leaders and really do a better job?
That's a deep question. So I would say broad stroke answers. leaders really need to carve out time to get to know their employees on a one-on-one or small group basis, right? It's so important. You get someone, join a team. Yeah, of course, we see their resume. We understand why they might have been hired. Even a leader might have been part of the hiring process. We get all of that. Once they're on board, find ways to have those one-on-one conversations, even in passing. Even the how are you doing is a powerful question. I now pause. I don't just immediately say, oh, I'm doing great. I pause because I can tell almost immediately if you're genuinely asking how I'm doing or if you're just asking to ask, right? Because that question is a gateway to someone sharing something very deep with you if you've created that safe space, right? Yeah. So I think that's the first thing is make the time. And leaders should not be so busy that they can't have time. That's why they have staff. That's why they have teams to delegate, right? So even if it's an hour on a Friday or a Monday, walk around, Slack, whatever, if you're virtual, find the time. 5 minutes, 10 minutes is all it takes. Ask the questions. Maybe today we want to get to know you. What's your favorite childhood memory? And from there comes conversation, right? What are some of the challenges that you dealt with in your childhood? So almost everything can be traced back to our childhood. Happiness, trauma, whatever it is, all stems back to our history, right? And even 5 minutes ago is my history, right? So make that time. I would say that is the biggest advice I could give leaders and team members. Genuinely create the time. And I'll add another thing. Even as projects move forward, if someone is doing a great job, hey, what made you think about adjusting this project in that direction? There's a story behind it. If someone is lagging, falling behind on a time frame, hey, why is it? Not in a mean way, but what can I do to support you? We're a little bit behind. And then can you share with me why you are behind so that I can support you? It could be, oh my gosh, I'm a perfectionist and I'm really spiraling in this space. All right, let's work on this together. And then I want to hear your story. How did you become this perfectionist? Suman Kapur became this perfectionist because she's the elder child of immigrant parents. And I could not let my parents down. So whether it was overt or not, I took on every pressure there was. And model minority as a South Asian, I could not do wrong. My dad was an accountant. And so every penny literally was accounted for. And now we're talking back in the day where we had rotary phones, where we did not have unlimited call time. So my dad would scrutinize every bill that came in the house, from credit cards to phone bills. And we had a green ledger. You would pick up the phone, dial the phone number, write down as that phone call was connecting, write down who you're calling and the start time of your phone call. Have your conversation, hang up, write the end time of that call. This way, my father knew exactly how long that phone call was and would anticipate what that bill would look like so he could budget. While I don't do that, there were many a times, and I will say I'm very strict on my spending. I even talk to my children about needs and wants in spending. I didn't get it then.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, none of my other friends are doing that. It's ridiculous. Oh, or if I forgot, he would say, who called this phone number? It's not in the book. Who called this? And then before he would get on the phone to call the phone company to dispute it, my sister or I or my mom, we'd say, oh yeah, that was our phone call. So sorry. He's like, you have to stick with it or the budget doesn't work. Right?
I was going to ask you what you got. What did you extrapolate from all of the lessons that you learned from your family?
So for me, what it ended up showing in my journey is just how important family is, right? Family, our stories, my sister and I, now with the world of Instagram and these reels, and I'm sure you've seen reels of our childhood on there. she and I just totally will message each other and be like, oh my God, this was so us, this was us. But it really ingrained community, the importance of community, the importance of family, the importance of, at least in my household, sharing with others. And I think that's what's led me to the work that I do, right? Of course, their dream was Suman's going to be a doctor. And I tried for a while and that didn't happen. But I really wanted to be a community builder. That's what my dad was, and my mom still is to this day, a community builder. How do we create a space where people can come with whatever lens they're coming in, and let's create the space to learn from each other. Really quick story, just to pick up on the curry smelling apartment. Yeah, I got bullied a lot of that smell, and I would come home and I'd complain to my mom and dad, please guys, I can't go home, go back to school smelling like this. And they both decided that they were going to host a meal in the apartment for my classmate. And they did. I was mortified, like, oh my God, are you kidding me? There's talk about, what is it, adding fire to the flame. I was like, how could you, I'm already going to be bullied. And now you want people to come to the apartment and smell this and share in food? Are you crazy? But what I noticed when they did that was education. Mom and dad would talk about the medicinal properties of the spices. Indian spices have turmeric and ginger, and there's so much medicinal
Curry
properties.
Is not a spice, people. Curry is not a spice. It's not a single spice.
Exactly.
It's a blend of spices.
Exactly. And so they would talk about that and why they cook the way they do and why yogurt is so important in the digestion of the food, and why we eat it. Then they talked about, the partition between Pakistan and India and the war. And literally I could see my friends looking over at me, and it was like little light bulbs going off in their head. And subconsciously, it is that story that has led me to the work that I do today. Because education, creating a space for conversation, is the way that we overcome, and open-mindedness is the way that we overcome the challenges in our society. You have to be open-minded to hear other people's stories and to acknowledge their stories, not to change it, but to acknowledge their stories, right? Someone might hear my story and be like, well, that's not how it is. No, that's not how it is for you, but that is how it was for me. And you need to respect that. And if we take that lesson into the workplace, that is how workplaces can be more inclusive.
Oh my goodness. I have like goosebumps. You've told this story before, and I'm so glad you told it on the show, because I'm just sitting here going, I think I can make this a two-parter. I think I can just take all of this and put it in it, because people need to hear all of this.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can trim down to 15 minutes, but I am so excited that we were able to do this, because we're both running like 90-0, but you have such an incredible background. I'm so honored to have met you, to be part of what you're doing, to be friends with you, to be in the groups with you. And your story is incredible. The more I hear of it, the more I'm just like, I just am a big fan. So thank you so much for being here, for sharing part of your story here today with everybody, and for shining a light on how for us as leaders to be better. So
Thank you. And right back at you, my friend, right back at you. And anytime you want a part 2, I got more stories, lots. Name pronunciation is the other one that comes to my mind. So code switching on that. So yeah, we'll have to come back to that.
We'll have to come back to that. We have been with Suman Kapur, and this is Time to Change. Thank you for joining us.